So if you've ever played around with NotebookLM's slide deck feature, you know the promise, right? It's supposed to save you hours of manual design work. But let's be real, how do you actually get it to produce those top-tier, C-level presentations every single time? Well, that's what we're here for. We're going to dive into a powerful 5-step workflow that really unlocks the full potential of this thing. We've all been there. You hit that magic button and what pops out looks amazing. But then you start to read it, and the whole illusion just shatters. My very first attempt on a deck about context engineering had the AI arguing against multi-agent systems on slide 4, only to turn around and recommend them as the perfect solution on slide 11. And that's the core problem, isn't it? You get this beautiful deck that makes absolutely no sense. And this right here, this shows you the whole journey. On the left, you've got that frustrating, logically broken first attempt. But on the right, that's the goal. A cohesive, visually compelling, and strategically sound deck for a LinkedIn AI strategy. This is what's possible when you stop just clicking a button and start following a system. It'll save you hours of frustration, I promise. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the promise and the peril of AI presentations. Then we'll walk through the exact 5-step workflow. We'll cover how to set yourself up for success, how to iterate like a pro with a really game-changing trick, and then we'll wrap up with a clear verdict on when you should use this powerful tool and when you probably shouldn't. Right, let's start with why that magic button approach just fails so often. It's not just about the AI getting a fact or two wrong. It's about getting stuck in this endless, frustrating loop of revisions. Ugh, this slide just captures the pain perfectly. To fix one little logical flaw, you had to regenerate the entire deck. You'd wait, 15 minutes, only to find that the AI fixed that one thing, but broke 3 other things that were working perfectly before. It is a punishing loop that just burns through your most valuable resource, your time. So, how do we break out of that loop? Well, the answer isn't to just click the button harder, it's to use a smarter system. So let's get into it, the 5-step workflow. This is a repeatable process that tames the AI and gets you consistent, high-quality results every single time. And here it is, the whole shebang. Prepare, template, customize, iterate, and refine. Think of this as your new mental model. The first 3 steps are all about the prep work. And the last 2, well, that's where the real magic of refinement happens. We're going to break down every single one. All right, let's build the foundation. Steps 1 through 3 are where you do all the strategic heavy lifting. And trust me, getting this part right means the AI spends its time executing your vision, not just guessing at it. Now, if you remember one thing, remember this. Step 1 is the most crucial step of them all. The biggest mistake people make is treating NotebookLM like a data dump. You can't do that. You have to practice what we call context engineering, which is just a fancy way of saying you curate a clean, dedicated data set for the specific story you want to tell. And what you're seeing here is that exact transformation. We started with a raw, hour-long audio transcript from a podcast, full of ums, ahs, repeated questions, all that verbal filler. We used another AI tool to turn it into this clean, structured, markdown brief. We cut out all the noise. The goal is to create pure signal, so the AI only has the truth you want to present. And that, right there, is the fundamental principle. If you control the sources, you control the output. When you give the AI a tightly curated context, it stops trying to be a writer that just makes stuff up. Instead, it becomes a designer that visualizes your facts. This is the absolute secret to limiting hallucinations and making sure everything is logically consistent. Okay, so now we have our content, that's the brain. Now we need a body for it, and that is where the template comes in. You've got to give the AI a design skeleton, right? An empty container that it can pour all of your structured content into. And here's exactly what that looks like inside NotebookLM. You're going to upload 2 separate files. First, that markdown brief we just created, that's the brain. Second, an empty branded presentation file, that's the body. And it's so important that this template is totally empty, otherwise the AI can get confused by old text. So we've got our brain and our body in place. Now we can move from just passive generation to active direction. Instead of just hitting generate, you're going to hit that customize icon. This is where you give the AI its director's notes. And this is the master prompt. And look how specific it is. It explicitly tells the AI which source is for the design and which one is for the content. It defines the audience, the goals, the structure. A prompt like this forces the AI to follow your narrative, and it injects that strategic nuance that might not be obvious from the text alone. Okay, you did all the prep work. Nicely done. Now for the truly game-changing part of this whole workflow. This is how you take the AI's output from a pretty decent draft and turn it into a polished final product, all without ever having to start from scratch. Let's face it, the first draft is rarely perfect. So what's the strategy? You review it, you refine your prompt, and you re-roll. And sometimes you just need to run the exact same prompt again. I know, it sounds like insanity, right? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result? But with LLMs, it's actually a valid strategy. And that's because these models are probabilistic. They're not deterministic. So rerunning the prompt is basically like rolling the dice a second time. It can often solve weird layout issues or little logic gaps just because the model takes a slightly different path to the solution. My rule of thumb? Always run it at least twice. But this brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? You've got a deck that is, say, 80% perfect, but slide 10 is just not right. How do you fix that one slide without risking the other 9 that you already love? The answer is a little trick I call the freeze and patch technique. Here's how it works. You download your best draft as a PDF. Then, and this is the key part, you re-upload it as a new source. This freezes the structure. Then you run a new, super targeted prompt, something like regenerate slide 10 to focus more on financial implications, to patch only the specific slides you need to change. And this right here is the magic move. By adding that generated PDF back into your sources, it becomes a fixed anchor. Your new prompt will reference this PDF, basically telling the AI, hey, keep everything exactly the same except for this one slide I want you to fix. It's surgical, not explosive. It's a total game changer. So now that you have this whole system, when should you actually use it? Look, NotebookLM is an incredible tool, but it is not a replacement for everything. It's a different kind of beast, and you've got to know its strengths. Here's a pretty clear breakdown. You want to use this workflow for things like vision and strategy decks where the story is everything. It's amazing for creating visual impact with infographics, especially if the final deliverable is a static PDF. But you want to avoid it for rigid financial reporting, like a quarterly earnings report where every single number has to be perfect. And you probably don't want to use it for collaborative decks where your team needs to jump in and edit text boxes later. So what's the real takeaway here? This workflow, it isn't just about making slides faster. It's about shifting your time and your energy away from that tedious work of moving pixels around and focusing it where it actually matters, on shaping the strategy. The next time you have a high-stakes presentation, give this a try. You're not only going to save yourself hours of work, but you'll probably create a more strategic and a more compelling final product because of it.